Good day everyone, bonjour tout le monde, this is Roger and welcome to this new episode of BIA, the Dodgers of Canada. This is the last episode that we recorded during our filming trip in November and December 2021. After the Battle of Rimini, the 1st Canadian Corps was critically under strain, but the tempo of the war was far from slowing down. And to add to their misery, the record-breaking rainstorms of the fall of 1944 proved to be as much of an enemy than the German army itself. And it was followed by the deadly static warfare of the winter lines along the Senio River. In today's episode, we will give you a general idea of the river battles that took place and the actions that led to the 3rd Canadian Victoria Cross of the Italian campaign. After that, we're going to meet Madame Mariangela Rondinelli, who will guide us through the streets of Russie and other historical locations in the Canadian sector along the Lemon and the Senio River. The ground that the Canadians were to capture during the next advance was flat plains of reclaimed marshes, with a series of rivers and channels banked high on each side. The soil was a light clay that became slippery under a light shower, but under heavy rain, the vehicles and tanks would sink in it and could not move. The heavy rains of October and November 1944 have turned those small rivers into raging torrents more than 5 meters deep in some places. It destroyed many improvised bridges in its course, which prevented heavy vehicles and tanks to cross in support of the infantry. From the 22nd to the 27th of September, the 5th Armored Division advanced from the Marichia to the Fiumicino, facing the German 29th Panzer Grenadiers, who were well concealed in the vineyards near Casale and Veriano. The Germans put up a good fight that cost 275 casualties to the regiments of the 12th Brigade. On the 28th of September, General Hofmeister ordered the 11th Brigade to take the lead. They crossed the Salto River, engaging the 26th Panzer Grenadiers, but were forced to stop their advance at the Fiumicino River because all the bridges were either destroyed or washed away. After meeting with his divisional commanders to assess the situation, the Canadian Corps Commander, General Burns, made a recommendation to 8th Army Commander that they should hold on the advance during winter to avoid a repeat of the disastrous advance to Ortona the previous year. But General McCreary didn't agree and ordered the advance to continue, including the British 5th Corps advancing on the left flank of the Canadians along the foothills of the Apennine Mountains. And he attached the 2nd New Zealand Division and the 3rd Greek Brigade to the Canadian Corps. On the 10th of October, the Cumberland Force, named after the brigadier who commanded it, a mixture of Canadian infantry, British Armoured, New Zealand and Greek infantry, conducted rapid offensive operations along the coastal Highway 16 toward the Savio River, liberating several villages along the way. On the 25th of October, a company of the Perth Regiment that were part of the Cumberland Force, assisted by local partisans, established a bridgehead across the Savio. Now, let's move inland. In the 1st Canadian Infantry Division sector, between the Bologna-Rimini Railway and Route 9. On October 14, after a swift advance and battle, the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment, supported by the tanks of the Stratkonas, captured the town of Bulgaria in a brilliant combat team cooperation. This victory had cost 30 casualties to the HTPs, including Ontario native Huron Brandt, who had won the military medal in Sicily. On October 15th, the 5th New Zealand Infantry Brigade entered Gambetoya after the Germans have evacuated the town. On October 18th, the Loyal Edmonton Regiment, commanded by now Lieutenant Colonel Jim Stone, hero of Ortona, captured Pichiateo. On the 19th of October, the Princess Patricia Canadian Light Infantry passed through the lines of the Loyal Edmonton Regiment, while the Royal 22e Regiment and their Carleton and York Regiment entered Cesena that had been abandoned by the Germans. However, crossing the Savio will prove to be the biggest obstacle the Canadians met in northern Italy. On the 20th of October, the PPCLI were the first to test the German defenses across the Savio. The two companies who attempted to cross were greeted with a heavy enemy fire and mines. Only 16 men managed to dig in on the far side of the riverbank, and on the 21st of October, they pushed back several enemy counterattacks. Sergeant F.H. Sparrow was awarded the Military Medal for his bravery that day when he crossed the river to get a radio and a handful of reinforcements. That same night, two companies of the Seafort Highlanders and one company of the Loyal Edmonton Regiment crossed the river and passed on both sides of the brave PPCLI bridgehead. Once Charlie Company was able to obtain a foothold near the church along the Cesena-Ravenna Road, the commanding officer of the Seafort Highlanders sent his anti-tank platoon across the river, comprised of 16 soldiers, 4 Piats, and 80 tank grenades, to cover the company's flanks in preparation for German counterattacks, which came very quickly in the form of a column of 3 Panther tanks, 2 self-propelled guns, and 30 Panzer Grenadiers. Private Leon and Greengrass engaged the leading SPG with their Piat and then disposed of the crew. Another Piat team, led by Private Ernest Alvia Smith, nicknamed Smokey, rushed in the ditch along the farm lane used by the Seafort when one of the Panther fired his machine gun at them. Smith told Private Ballard to stay put on one side of the road while him and Private Tennant rushed on the other side to have both sides covered. Private Tennant was hit in the leg, so Smith grabbed his Piat and waited for the tank to be 30 feet from him and hitting the Panther square on. 10 Panzer Grenadiers jumped off the back of the tank, and Private Smith traded his Piat for his Tommy gun and killed 4 Germans. Then another Panther, heading in this direction, fired a round by Smith, who jumped in the ditch to gather more Thompson magazines from his injured friend, and he engaged the dismounted soldiers, killing some until they broke contact. Once things calmed down enough, Smith took Tennant to get medical help, and he went back to his position with Private Ballard to cover the company's flank. For his extreme bravery in the face of the enemy, Private Smokey Smith was awarded the 3rd Victoria Cross of the Italian campaign. He also was the only Canadian private to earn the Victoria Cross during World War II. There were many acts of bravery that day from every regiment who fought across the Savio River. For the remaining months of November and December, and rolling into January and February 1945, there were many more costly river crossings, including the Ronco, the Montone, and the Lamone, all the way to the east bank of the Senio River. In February 1945, after 20 months in Italy, the Canadian Corps has been reassigned to join the rest of the Canadian Army for the liberation of Holland. Operation Goldflake started in February and will end after the last Canadian service personnel left the Italian soil at the end of March 1945. Close to 93,000 Canadians served in Italy. 5,764 of them lost their life there and are buried in 17 cemeteries dispersed across Italy. 19,486 were wounded and 1,004 were captured. Unfortunately, the veterans of Italy are Canada's forgotten heroes of World War II.
Showed us the sights and gave us tea. We all sang songs, the beer was free. We are the D-Day Dodgers in sunny Italy. The Morro and Ortona were taken in our stride. We didn't really fight there, we went just for the ride. Sleeping till noon and playing games, we live in Rome with lots of dames. We are the D-Day Dodgers in sunny Italy.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're in Lugo, the last, our last position north of Italy. I think that's as far north as we go. And today we're gonna meet with Mary Angela Rondellini, and we're gonna tell the stories of Ravenna, Russi, on the passage of the Lamone, and all the way to the Senio River. These are the last stories of the D-Day Dodgers, 1940, winter 1944-45. I'm with George, who's very happy this morning, like smiling.
Look at me, I'm just overjoyed.
Yeah. So anyway, we lost John. He's gone home. He's on the plane right now, having relaxing. And George got like two video camera, like a still camera around the neck. And wow.
It's still empty. Lamone, that same point we crossed to come here.
Okay.
And these are private photographs, and this is the temporary cemetery just outside the civil cemetery and civilian cemetery, and it was the Vandus temporary cemetery. These soldiers are buried at Ravenna, where then moved to the war cemetery, the Ravenna war cemetery, while the Carlton and York soldiers were moved to the Bologna war cemetery.
Oh no, it's this building here. Right here, Roger. That gentleman was standing right there.
Okay, so you hold on to the picture. You hold on to this. So you tell me where to stand.
Okay. Stop there. Move to your right. Right there.
Right there?
Right on the edge of the wall there. You see that?
So that picture was taken by Gérard Dagenet in 1944, December 1944. So here's a picture of Monsieur Dagenet again in front of this church. 1944.
Was moved to the Ravenna war cemetery. Because his unit wasn't here. He was an Edmonton, from the Edmonton regiment. So it was a 5th Canadian Armored Division, and there weren't temporary cemeteries here for those regiments. There were other temporary cemeteries for the Vandus, for the Carlton and York Regiment, because those units were based in this area. The others, so other soldiers who came from other different regiments, they were temporarily buried in this, just in that area.
In this courtyard here with
yes, yes, just close to the smithing.
The 50 cal.
Is it a bullet?
Yeah.
Et dès là,
That's pretty interesting because this is an Allied sign, Canadian sign, and that is something written during the fascism on the wall.
That wall over there.
Yes, it's pretty interesting.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
So these are the two types. So I don't know why, but it looks like it was a British regiment, because these are the two types. There's another. See, it was here.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go stand right where this soldier is. I'm holding a picture that Joanne Dagenet sent here. Joanne, from her father, that was taken in 1944. And this is that was a temporary cemetery for the Royal 22e Regiment. And there's also another picture with a that we can see very close to that doorway over there that we're gonna move in a second. That shows the end, the Royal 22e Regiment. All right, so as you can see here, like we're standing in front of the doorway where the sign of the cemetery was right there, like we're standing right on it. The St. James Palace in Russie. And here's
Because Germans didn't take the ox, because they used to, see. Well, it was war.
It was war. You're right.
Because the road didn't. That road didn't exist. The road was here.
Right in front of the chapel here was the ox, but we can still see the track.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Anyhow, they are very important photographs.
They are.
Really
it shows that they were alive,
yes,
right?
Yes.
There was not only battle, but there was life, and they were interacting with the Italians.
This is the ceremony, and the ceremony was just a few days before they left the area. It was about mid-February.
Mid-February?
Yes, I think so.
This was inaugurated.
Yes.
So there's another picture as well, if you want to show us about what the inauguration of the cemetery. So Carlton and York Regiment.
Yeah.
Carlton and York Regiment inaugurated this cemetery, temporary cemetery here.
And there's a photograph where we can notice there are civilians around. There are particularly, of course, there were women attending the ceremony, just in the back.
That's it.
We can see. And the soldiers who were temporarily buried here, they were moved to the Bologna War Cemetery afterwards.
Okay, to Bologna.
Yeah, because before they were killed in the crossing, after the crossing, and brought back. Yes, of course. So it was. They started in December 44, not before.
We're at the top of one of the turrets of the St. James Palace, just north of Russie, along the river, the Le Mans River. And from this tower, there was a Canadian Force photography unit filmed a movie in 1944. And we believe it was from this tower because it's the highest point that can overlook the whole valley. It's very incredible to be standing here right now.
Well, the situation was very funny. Sometimes the Canadians were on the outside of the bank. Germans were in the inner part. They were in the inside bank. So they were a few yards. So they had to whisper not to be heard. It was a funny situation.
So it became like
it has been very very deteriorated, but on the walls of this room there are graffiti left by Canadians. Have a look here. It's a pity. See, Canada star, and that's a map of Canada. Can you see it?
Oh yes, yes.
You have to go very close. I didn't notice it until
British Columbia,
a family,
Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba.
yeah. And the lakes, it finishes here. It finishes with the lakes here. See this one, see.
The truck.
Yes, and this, Canadian Army, what's it?
Transport.
Force.
Transport.
Okay, and this one, RCAS.
That's the
Royal Canadian Army.
Service Corps.
Service Corps. Anyhow, I don't know who, but some Canadian soldiers had their Christmas dinner here or outside the palace. They were here. It's like a Christmas card.
1944.
It's like a Christmas card, see, but it is so much.
Merry Christmas.
It is very much deteriorated.
So we are together, Mariangela and I, at the San Giacomo Palace, and the Canadians were here, and apparently also had a Christmas dinner in the area here.
Yes.
And this plaque is to commemorate the Canadians who were here in 1944,
Yes.
December 1944.
Liberated the town. There were many regiments here. First Division was here.
Yes.
No voice I've got, so you say
Who
it.
was responsible, Mariangela, to put this plaque here?
The people of Russia.
The people of the city?
Of Russia, yes.
Beautiful. And I really like what it says on it. In this place, the Canadian soldiers fought for freedom, and suffering heavy losses, they sacrificed their youth for our dignity, for our right, and our right to choose. Since we've been on this trip, since we started this journey in Sicily a month ago, this is the message that we've been repeating over and over again every place we visited. And I'm so touched today.
We must remember it, and we have to pass the torch to the next generation, to our young people. They cannot forget. We owe our democracy, we owe our freedom to those young people who came from far away, and they gave their young lives for our freedom.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Right now behind me is the San Giacomo Palace, and we're actually right in front of me. You can't see right now, but it's the south bank of the Lamon River. On December 3rd, 1944, 3rd Brigade, as they were leading the advance of 1st Canadian Infantry Division, by the time they arrived close to the bank of the Lamon River, they already had suffered over 100 casualties leading from Russia all the way here. And Brigadier Bernache requested a change from 3rd Brigade to 1st Brigade to continue the advance to pass the Lamon River. And so 1st Brigade came forward, and the leading element of the 1st Brigade to actually do the bridge head across the river, the task have been given to the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment and the Royal Canadian Regiment to do it. On the right flank will be the Royal Canadian Regiment, and on the left flank will be the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment. We're gonna go up to where the action happened on the 5th of December, and as we describe also the condition of the Lamon River, so you can understand what will unfold and the consequences of when decisions are made in the haste and the planning is not done as it should have been done. I'm on the bank of the Lamon River right now, walking on top of it. It's about 12 feet high, at least 12 feet high. And it's a perfect place. When you advance close to it, you can get cover from the incoming fire from the opposite side. But you know that you're gonna have to climb on top, right? And go over You don't want to do that in broad daylight. And it's mud and raining everywhere. On top of that, in December 1944, the Lemon River was swelled because of the heavy rains. And instead of being 3 to 4 feet deep, it was like almost like 15 feet deep. There was no way the troops could cross the Lemon River on foot. They had to have means like little boats, rubber boats, or like an improvised bridge to cross over. And while they were waiting to do the crossing, some things happened that were not planned, right? And you can see how steep it is. It's about like 12 feet high. Perfect place to conceal yourself from enemy fire. However, it became a very deadly place for the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment. There had been an artillery firing plan laid out previously when the 3rd Brigade was supposed to continue the advance. And because now the 3rd Brigade had switched with the 1st Brigade to continue the advance, the information didn't get passed along very well. From what we can understand, the medium guns of the Royal Canadian Artillery were to engage on the other side of the Lemon River. However, knowing that the medium guns, the 25 pounder, have a very straight trajectory, the Hasty Peas or whatever regiment that was tasked to go close to the bank of the river had been told that they to stay away from the river for the time when the firing mission would start. The Hasty Peas were not aware of it, so they took their position along the bank of the river, thinking that they were well protected. And then the worst case scenario happened when the artillery opened fire. A lot of rounds fell right against the bank of the river and caused many casualties, over 48 casualties in the Hasty and Prince Edward Regiment. That was the worst thing that could have happened to the start. To the flank of the Hasty Peas, there was the Royal Canadian Regiment. Royal Canadian Regiment, there's the railroad bridge behind me. The railroad bridge had been blown by the Germans, but this has been selected as the crossing point for the Royal Canadian Regiment to go over with the leading companies to establish their bridgehead on the other side of the Lemon. They were waiting for the assault boats and the rubber boats to come in to help them cross the river. In 1944, because of the heavy rain, the river was about 15 feet deep. There was no way the troops could cross the river on foot, so they had to wait for those boats. The boats were late to arrive. When they finally arrived, the Germans opened fire on the Canadians, on the RCR, with mortar fire. And the mortar fell exactly on the bridge, or where the bridge was, and wiped out almost a whole platoon of Charlie Company Royal Canadian Regiment. So they're going ahead on the other side, establishing their bridgehead. Charlie Company already lost 1 platoon. Eventually the Hastings were able to regroup with the RCR on the other side of the Lemon, but there was a gap in their defense position, and the Germans counterattacked with anti-tank gun, with Panzers and Panzer Grenadiers, and they exploited the gap of the Canadians, and it became a total fiasco. Many Canadians got killed, taken prisoners, and finally they had to retreat on the other side of the river. So by December 6, we came to the conclusion that this first attempt from the 1st Canadian Infantry Division to cross the Lemon River had been a total failure. 2 regiment or 2 battalion commanders will lose their job because of that and will be replaced eventually. At the same time that the 1st Canadian Infantry Division was attempting their first crossing of the Lemon River, 5th Canadian Armored Division had more success on their side of the advance and succeeded to establishing themselves very strongly on the other side of the Lemon. Eventually, after this failed attempt, 1st Canadian Infantry Division succeeded to cross the Lemon, and by December 20th, we were at the Senio River. The whole Canadian Corps was at the Senio River, and this is where they're gonna spend most of the winter months between December all the way to March in this area, about 9 kilometers wide between the Lemon and the Senio River, and about 3 kilometers deep. Not 3 to 4 kilometers deep at some places. And this is where the Canadians will finish their fight in the Italian campaign. They will be staying within the population here and having a lot of contacts and doing a lot of good things for the civilians. But again, you know, this happened. These battles happened at a very high cost for the Canadians. As we are walking through the Canadian portion of the cemetery in Ravenna, I just noticed that there is there's a number of soldiers that are buried right next to the Canadians as part of the Canadian plot, but they're from New Zealand, 2nd Division. The New Zealanders were attached to the Canadian Division or the Canadian Corps during the battle here from the Lamont and the Senio River.
We are at Lance Sergeant Saint-Germain's grave. Saint-Germain was part of the Loyal Edmonton Regiment, and he died on December the 14th, 1944, aged 28. The son of Adolphus and Marie Nancy Saint-Germain of Dixonville, Alberta, Canada. A boy, Alex, wanted to remember him and thank him with this poem. Here I feel free. I want to die here, in battle, better than back there, where I did not even own a sweater. Here I'm free to look at the sea. There I was unable even to go into a bar. Though it is not my country, I fight and give my best, because I know that it means not what it means not to be free. I was crossing the Naviglio, and I saw a beautiful lily. I heard a shot, and that was the end for me. Why did Alex write these words, use these words for the poem? Because from the D-Day Dodgers by Daniel Dancox, we read, the Addies captured 91 Germans and killed or wounded another 40. 50 of their own had fallen, including a dozen dead. One of those killed was Sergeant Joseph Saint-Germain, a native from northern Alberta who had fought at Ortona. When Colonel Stone had congratulated him after the battle, Saint-Germain had stated matter-of-factly, "That's fine, sir. I hope I'm killed in this war. Here I lead a platoon and the boys call me Saint. But back in Canada I'm just a poor cotton Indian with no right to vote, unable even to go into a bar." Sergeant Saint-Germain got his wish on the muddy banks of the Naviglio.
For the fallen, they shall not grow old.
As we that are left grow old,
Age shall not weary them.
nor the years condemn.
At the going down of the sun,
And in the morning we
will remember
remember
them.
them.
Thank you.
When the Canadians arrived, they were very nice towards the family. Very, very nice and helpful. All the population here, they helped. Okay, let's have a look.
All right, so we're climbing up the steeple of the church. I'm almost at the top. Here's Villa Prati. Is this crazy? I'm full of spider web. This thing hasn't been open for years. It's full of spider web. So as we rang the bell at Bottom of the Corvo, I was the second Canadian, I believe, to ring that bell. We're here at Villa Prati, Villanova, au sud, at the south, and the Senio River to the north. We're in the middle of the advance, the last advance from the Lamon River to the Senio River from December to February, March 1944-45. I don't think nobody ever rang that bell from Canada, so why not do it? Take the advantage of it, right? It's done. So we rang the bell. Okay, description of the ground. Now the 1st Canadian Corps has been fighting his last operations of World War II in the Italian campaign of the winter of 1944-45. It started in November, December, the passage of the Lamon River, and there was a series of ditches from the Lamon at Villanova that the Perth Regiment, 5th Canadian Armored Division, all the units like Westminster Regiment, the Irish Regiment, and the Artillery Regiment, and the Tank Regiment attached to them, came up this way, and to more west of the Villanova would be the 1st Canadian Infantry Division. As you see the sun coming down, all right, that would be the west. This place is flat like a pancake, unlike everything else in Italy. Where they fought here, it was a ditch after a ditch, river after river. That's why we call it Bloody Rivers. It's the Bloody River campaign. And we moved all the way to the north toward the Senio River. And that's where we stopped the advance. And that's where it became the stalemate for the remainder of the winter months, until the Canadian Corps was pulled out of the Italian campaign to go and rejoin the rest of the Canadian Army in Northwest Europe to finish the fight in Holland of World War II. It's incredible to be here right now. Incredible. All the stories that was told by Mariangela, the Canadians who fought during the Italian campaign from July 1943 to March 1945. Listen, this is incredible. They fought through every climate, every terrain conditions, in the worst conditions possible. They lost friends. They were like labeled as D-Day Dodgers, like secondary. It was a secondary theater of a lesser importance. But you know why? There were so many German divisions that were drawn to the fight of Italy. That if these divisions would have been north in France or in Holland, maybe the rest of the story would have been different. Those guys here were the forgotten campaign. Those guys here had to fight with less kit, less equipment. They had a hard time to get replacements for the people that they lost. They lost leadership, the greatest leadership, to go to Northwest Europe to share the experience. The Italian campaign was brutal, was long. It was the longest campaign for the Canadians in World War II, and these men deserve all the respect. The sun's coming down, and this is our last day of basically of filming in northern Italy. We just reached the northern boundary of our trip to Italy, the Senio River, which was, as far as the Canadians went in the winter of 1945, the end of the Italian campaign, if we want to put it this way, for the Canadian Corps, until they were transferred to Northwest Europe to finish the war in 1945. For BIA the Dodgers of Canada, this is Roger. Thank you for following us through the whole journey from Pechino, Sicily, all the way to the bank of the Senio River. We followed the journeys of the Canadians who fought so hard and gave us the legacy, the battle honors, all the sacrifice and the blood that was shed to liberate Italy, to liberate Europe. Their sacrifice was not in vain. We will remember them. Thank you for watching. Please share those stories with everyone you know, that every Canadian knows what happened here for 20 months of Canadian sacrifice to win over tyranny, so we have a better and free world to live in. For BIA the Dodgers of Canada, this is Roger. Till we meet again, Custos Memoria.